Okay, so it's time for us to cover some blood ties. Now, blood ties comes right after good old fatal attractions for the X-Men, but this is an Avengers X-Men crossover. Now, this was a five-part crossover done in 1994, going to 1995, I want to say. Now, blood ties for me is actually a good story, but also kind of shows off the powers of Exodus. Now, as we all know, Exodus first appeared back in X Factor issue number 92, I want to say, the earlier parts of Fatal Attractions. But when he appeared back then, really, when he appeared a lot of times in Fatal Attractions, we did not get the chance to see how powerful he truly was. We only got a small glimpse of his powers. But this story arc right here really shows how powerful he truly is. But also, we're going to see a civil war happen in Genosha. Now, we have talked a lot of times before when it comes to Genosha. Now, remember, when it comes to Genosha, it's a small nation off the east coast of Africa, a small island off the east coast of Africa. But for Genosha, they were trying to paint this picture where they're saying that if you come there, you will no longer have any problems at all, that they are a perfect nation. But in reality, they were using mutants as slaves as a way to build up their nations. Now, over time, you have the mutants finally have the ability to regain free will and no longer be slaves towards the humans on Genosha. And the new government of Genosha was trying their best to repair things between the humans and the mutants in that country. But unfortunately, a civil war has broken out in that country. Now, before we are able to dive into the reason why we have a civil war happening in Genosha, we do pick up with a character called Fabian Cortez. Now, when it comes to Fabian Cortez, we have talked a lot about this character before in the earlier parts of our coverage over the X-Men. When it comes to Fabian Cortez, when he first appeared, his main goal was to use Magneto as a martyr. And the reason why, because the death of Magneto would inspire other mutants to pick up where Magneto had left off at. And so for Fabian, he wanted to be in charge of all of those people who were inspired by the death of Magneto. And that actually led to him becoming the leader of the Acolytes, a group of people who were trying their best to do Magneto's work. Now, there was another reason why. You see, for Fabian Cortez, he was part of the Upstart organization. Now, we have talked about this group before in the earlier parts of our coverage over the X-Men. When it came to the Upstart organization, they were playing this sick game where they would go around the world killing off other mutants to receive points. And the reason why, because if you have the most points, you become the leader of the entire organization. And so when it came to Fabian Cortez, when he had killed off Magneto, a real powerful mutant, he had received a lot of points. And of course became the leader of the Upstart organization. But the problem was he found out Magneto was not dead and he had lost all those points. But either way, as we get into the opening page of this storyline, we see him right now holding the child of Luna, the daughter of Quicksilver and Crystal. And she is also going to be very important for today's video. Now, let's go ahead and talk about the idea of why we have a civil war right now in Genosha. So we pick up with Val Cooper, Henry Gyrich, and also Nick Fury. Three characters who work for the government in different kinds of ways. Now, for Val Cooper, she's the one telling us why we have a civil war in Genosha. And really, this is a callback to Fatal Attractions. And the reason why I'm saying that, because in the middle of Fatal Attractions, you have Magneto release a EMP across the entire world. And of course, it did affect all technology around the world. But for the humans of Genosha, they began to panic. And here's the reason why. Because of the mutants of Genosha. Because you do have some mutants out there who look up to Magneto as their god, as their great leader, as this great warrior of the mutant race. And so for the humans of Genosha, they got scared. They're like, oh my god, if the mutants find out that Magneto is alive, those mutants are going to attack us and try to kill us off. Because again, Magneto and the Acolytes were kind of big on the idea of just trying to get rid of the human race. And so you have the humans begin to attack the mutants. Now, for the mutants of Genosha, they had the right to protect themselves, but they also said we had many years where we were slaves for the humans of Genosha. And so we're not just trying to protect ourselves, but also we're trying to get payback for what you guys did to us over the years in Genosha. And so that led into a civil war across the entire country. And so right now for Henry Gyrich, he has to go over there and try to make some kind of peace treaty between both sides, the mutants and the humans. Now for Nick Fury, he has a different job. We do learn that for Nick Fury, his job is to make sure the Avengers do not get involved. And let me explain why. Because for the Avengers, they work for the United Nations. And so if the UN says, hey guys, you can't go in there, they can't go in there. But also it's the UN saying like, listen, it will look very bad if we just go ahead and send in a team of heroes to handle different problems in different countries around the world who are most likely not part of the UN. Now, with that being said, there is also a third reason why. And you have Nick say, listen, there is a faction out there of mutants who have something on the Avengers. And apparently they have sent a message and it says, we have something on you that can attack you on the whole idea of your mutants and humans relations. Now, you would think like, okay, Quicksilver and the Scarlet Witch. No, even though those two characters will play a very important role in the storyline, there is a third character involved, and that would be Luna. And so for Crystal, she realized that her child, who's half inhuman, half mutant, has been, well, taken. And so she runs over to her daughter's room. And so once she's able to enter the room, she finds her daughter, Luna. Now, let's not forget that we just saw a moment ago that Luna is with Fabian Cortez, which means this is not the real Luna. And matter of fact, you had a fake Luna begin to change. And we learned that this is a mutant from Genosha that was pretending to be Luna, but also they work for Fabian Cortez. Because right now, back in Genosha, he's the one in charge of the mutants who are trying their best to fight back against the human race. Now, with all that being said, when it comes to this mutant right here, they do tell the Avengers like, hey, Fabian has your daughter. Oh, by the way, I am now going to explode. And just like that, the entire base of the Avengers just went up in smoke. Now, I want to jump over to Henry Gyrich and also US Agent. The reason why, because you had those two characters beginning the process of bringing in the X-Men. And so we see those two guys going to meet up with Charles Xavier. Now, their main goal is to use Charles as a way to help bring peace between the mutants and the human race. Now, remember, at this point in time, the world does not know that Charles Xavier is a mutant. They still believe that Homeboy is, well, a human. But either way, for Charles, he does agree to go with Henry Gyrich and also US Agent over to Genosha, but he wants to bring in his own bodyguard, and that would be the Beast. But let's jump over to the rest of the X-Men team. Now, the rest of the X-Men team, they're currently just in the Danger Room training, but you also have Quicksilver there, even though he's technically part of X-Factor. Now, for Quicksilver, this man was also going through a lot in the 1990s. The whole idea of him trying to fix his marriage to Crystal. Now, for Quicksilver, he has no idea what happened to Crystal, that she may be dead because, well, the base got blown up, but also his daughter has been kidnapped. To him right now, his wife and daughter are okay at the base of the Avengers. But it's also Quicksilver saying like, maybe, just maybe, before I go back home to X-Factor, I should try one more time to fix my marriage. But then you have Charles call in the rest of the X-Men like, listen, Beast and I are going to head with Henry Gyrich and US Agent over to Genosha to hopefully bring peace to that country, but we may need backup. But if you do come, make sure you are not seen by anybody on that island. And so now the X-Men plus Quicksilver are going to head over to Genosha. But then that gives us the chance to go check in on the Avengers. Now we do learn that they had survived the explosion from earlier, but you now have Steve Rogers wondering if Nick knew that Luna was taken. Now for Nick, he says, listen, I had no idea how he got his hands on Luna, and I also did not know that he even had Luna. This is all new information for me as well. But again, for Nick, he has the job. The UN said, do not let the Avengers get involved in what's happening over in Genosha. And so while you have the Avengers trying to leave their base, they are confronted by all these different kinds of SHIELD agents ready to go to battle against the Avengers to make sure they cannot get involved in what's happening over in Genosha. But while you have Henry, Charles, and the Beast heading over to Genosha, you did have Fabian go live on TV. And you have Fabian say, listen, I am trying to step up where Magneto had left off at. I'm trying my best to follow in his footsteps. Now, for most people of Earth, they don't know that Magneto is currently off the table, that his mind was taken away by Charles Xavier. Only the X-Men and the acolytes who are close to Magneto actually know that. When it comes to Fabian, he was kicked out of the group. But either way, with him now being on live television, he is saying that he's the person in charge of the mutant race who are currently fighting against the human race in Genosha. And he says, listen, I feel like it's time for us to finally stand up. It's time for us to go ahead and wipe out the human race for everything they have done towards the mutant race in this country. Every human must be punished, including, well, good old Luna here. Because for Luna, even though she is the daughter of Quicksilver, at this point, she's technically just a human in Fabian's eyes. And so for Fabian's all like, yeah, she'll die as well if Genosha's government does not give up when it comes to fighting against the mutant race. They have tomorrow morning to go ahead and put all their weapons down. If they don't, then me and my fellow mutants will begin the process of killing off humans across the entire nation. And so as we dive into the second chapter, we do pick up with Quicksilver finding out that his daughter, Luna, has now been taken. Now for the X-Men, they realize that this is really more of Fabian Cortez using Luna as a human shield. And let me explain, because with her being the daughter of Quicksilver, that makes her the granddaughter to who? Magneto. And so that means that all the other mutants are not going to try to attack Fabian because he now has the granddaughter of Magneto by his side. But on top of that, for the Avengers or the X-Men or any other superhero team out there, they're not going to attack him unless they plan on going through her first. Now, for the X-Men, they also realize that for Fabian Cortez, the way he is talking, he has no idea that Magneto is off the table. His mind is gone at the moment. And so for the X-Men, they realize that they could possibly use that as a way to get close to Fabian and bring him down. Now, this leads us over to Colossus. And remember, when it came to Fatal Attractions, he left the X-Men and joined Magneto's side. Now, with Magneto no longer having his mind, basically in a coma, you have Magneto being taken care of by Colossus. Now, for Exodus, who was Magneto's right-hand man, is kind of wondering why Colossus is still there. Because for him, Colossus is still too good to be on the side of Magneto. But it's Colossus saying, listen, I got tired of fighting alongside with the X-Men to reach some kind of dream that most likely is never going to be reached at all. But on top of that, I came here to help guide you guys into better ways to actually reach those goals that you guys are trying to reach without the idea of destruction. Now, for Colossus, he believes that he can actually do that. But for Exodus, he kind of thinks like Magneto, that you need some kind of violence to help you reach the goals that you are trying to reach. Now, I want to jump back over to the Avengers. Here's the reason why, because I should have mentioned this earlier, but you have both the West Coast Avengers and the East Coast Avengers there at the same time working together. Now, by the end of this section, you're going to have a group go over to Genosha to hopefully save the life of Luna, while you have the other group stay behind to kind of have a conversation with the United Nations. Now, really, both groups are going to be a mix of both the East Coast and the West Coast Avengers. But really, like I said, by the end of this section, you do have Crystal and few other members like the Scarlet Witch and Steve Rogers leaving her to go over to Genosha to save the life of her daughter. Now, I want to jump back over to Henry Gyrich, Beast, and Charles Xavier. Now, there are two other characters with them right now, but for me personally, they're not really important for today's video, so I'm not going to waste any time trying to explain who they are. But either way, you do have our heroes on their way to a location to hopefully begin the process of bringing peace back to this nation. But the problem is, out of nowhere, they are attacked by some unknown force. And an unknown force is dropping gas grenades all over the place. Now, it does seem like Charles Xavier knew that this would actually happen. And he tells Beast, hey, grab me and head up there because we have to meet with another group of people. And they are called the Bipartisan Rebel Battalion. Now, this group right here is made up of humans and mutants who are all from Genosha. Now, they knew that sooner or later, a conflict like this, a civil war like this, would happen. And so they have been trying their best to just bring down the flames that are popping up left and right across the entire nation. Now, the leader of the actual group is a character known as Renee Matchcomb. Now, she'll be somewhat important for later chapters down the road, but you have Beast and Charles leave with this team to a different location, leaving behind U.S. Agent and also Henry Gyrich. Psych, because U.S. Agent was able to catch up to Charles Xavier and Beast and sneak onto the bottom of the vehicle for a later part of this storyline. Now we jump back over to the X-Men. Now, when they do arrive onto Genosha, they are then confronted by a group of characters called the Unforgiven. Now, the Unforgiven are, well, this is going to be their only appearance ever in Marvel Comics, and that's really it. But they were a group of mutants that were put together by Fabian Cortez. Now, they're kind of hoping the X-Men would actually help them to kill off the human race on Genosha, even though they already know the X-Men would not be down to doing that. And so once you have the X-Men say, like, yeah, we're not down with that idea, you then have our two sides begin to battle against one another. Now, for Quicksilver, he is able to take out their leader, but right after doing that, he is then confronted by Fabian Cortez. Now, before we're able to see what that conversation will look like, we jump back over to the Avengers who have now arrived into Genosha. Now, when they do arrive there, they're now being questioned on why in the world are the Avengers in Genosha? Are they there to help out the humans or to help out the mutant race? Now, we already know that for our heroes, they came to Genosha to find Luna, but to also bring peace between the humans and the mutant race. So you have our heroes tell both sides here, like, no, we only came here to bring peace, but also find a missing child. And so you have our heroes use their powers to stop both sides who are fighting against each other in the capital of Genosha. But then at the very end of this chapter, you then have the Avengers be confronted by another character, and that would be Exodus. Now, getting into the third chapter of the storyline, we have to pick up with the other Avengers group that went to go pay a visit over to the United Nations. Now, for Hawkeye, he's the one kind of leading this group, but it's him kind of saying like how wrong it was for the United Nations to tell the Avengers to not get involved while there are hundreds and hundreds, thousands and thousands of people being slaughtered in that Civil War. Now, for Hawkeye, the way he is speaking right now, it made it seem like all the Avengers agree on the fact that the Avengers should be there to handle that Civil War. But you do have different members of the United Nations realize that some members of the Avengers of this group do not really agree what Hawkeye is saying. But either way, they tell the Avengers, no, you guys cannot get involved in that kind of situation. Now let's get back over to the Avengers who were then confronted by Exodus. Now here's the thing. For Exodus, he really does try to get the Avengers on his side, but also because of the Scarlet Witch, who at this time was the daughter of Magneto. Now for Exodus, he already knows that for Quicksilver, he cannot bring him over to Magneto's side. But why not try for the Scarlet Witch? But you do have our heroes say like, listen, dude, we came here for my daughter, Crystal's daughter, so go ahead and hand her over to me now. Now for Exodus, he hates the idea that he was completely ignored, but also kind of like, okay, you know what? You chose your side, so I'm leaving now. And so he begins to fly away. But you have War Machine really being the one to kind of start a battle against Exodus here. Like for Exodus, he was just trying to leave. And for War Machine, it's kind of like, no, you can't leave just yet. And so you have those two characters begin a fight against one another. Now, while you have War Machine fighting against Exodus, you have the rest of the Avengers just trying to deal with the humans and the mutants who continue to fight against one another in the capital of Genosha. Now, really, when it comes to the Scarlet Witch, she does point out the fact that neither side truly cares for the Avengers right now. That technically they could just go ahead and leave, but they do kind of get pulled into the middle of the battle between the two sides. Now, you have Crystal being able to use her powers to push everyone away, and with her doing that, they now have a clear path to go ahead and continue their search for Luna, her daughter. Now, I want to jump over to Beast, Charles Xavier, and also the U.S. agent, because you didn't have Charles realize that he was being followed by a U.S. agent. Now, you do have our three heroes break into a certain part of a building where they do find hundreds of mutants who are being contained into one single room. Now, for our heroes, they're kind of wondering, why don't these mutants just go ahead and use their abilities to escape? But then out of nowhere, our heroes are then confronted by the Magistrate Elite. Now, the Magistrate originally was kind of like Genosha's police force in the early storylines for Genosha when they first appeared in X-Men comics. But it seems like right now they're still continuing to do their police work by watching over this huge group of mutants. Now, getting back over to the X-Men who were fighting against the Ungiven, you do have that battle kind of only last for like 3 or 4 pages. So by the end of the story, or this section right here, you do have our heroes being able to actually bring down all members of the Unforgiven. Now, for Quicksilver and Cyclops, they feel like they have their hands on the real Fabian Cortez, to only find out, nope, wrong again. This is another shapeshifter who was just pretending to be Fabian Cortez, but now the X-Men have to continue on with their mission. But getting back over to War Machine, who's fighting against Exodus, let me just say real quick that I'm really surprised that War Machine lasted this long against a powerful character like Exodus. But by the end of their battle, you do have War Machine, well, officially lose the battle. But right after he's taken down, you did have Exodus be confronted by somebody else who could possibly give him a challenge. And that would be, well, Cersei, an internal who's there to fight against him right there and now. Now, as we get into the 4th chapter, we do pick up with Charles Xavier, Beast, and also U.S. agent fighting against the Magistrate Elite. Now, here's the thing, because we do get reminded one more time that to the rest of the world, they have no idea that Charles Xavier is actually a mutant, not a human. Now, the reason why I'm bringing that up right now, because while you have Beast and U.S. agent fighting against the magistrate elite, you have two other people there, Jennifer Ransom and Philip Moreau. Now, these two characters are the two I said earlier who are not really important for today's story arc, but they do realize that Charles Xavier used his powers to help Beast and US Agent to fight against the magistrate elite. And they're kind of like, wait a second, you have powers? Because again, to the rest of the world, they believed that Charles Xavier was a human. But now they're finding out the man is actually a mutant. Now, I kind of want to jump back over to the battle between Cersei and Exodus. And here's the reason why, because you have both characters at the moment using a lot of psionic energy. Now, when it comes to their powers, that's only the start of their powers using psionic energy. They have so many other kinds of powers that right now, just them two characters using that kind of energy against one another is causing a lot of damage across the entire nation of Genosha. And matter of fact, you have the other Avengers realize that if they don't find a way to stop both Cersei and also Exodus, then most likely the entire nation of Genosha is going to end at this exact moment. And so you have the rest of the Avengers trying their best to figure out how to stop both Exodus and Cersei from fighting against one another. Now, I want to jump back over to the Avengers who are currently at the United Nations. Now, remember what I said earlier. When it comes to the Avengers, they currently work for, well, the UN. But this is the point where you have the Avengers move away from working with the UN. And the reason why I'm saying that because you have Black Widow right now giving a speech out to the public where she says that she was told to call back the rest of the Avengers. But she says, no, we're not going to do that. And matter of fact, she calls out the entire United Nations board. She says every single member of this group right here is just scared to do anything at all to help out other nations in need. And so it's time for the Avengers to finally get out of politics and get back out there as true heroes once again. And so just like that, it's her saying like, no, I am not going to call back the Avengers. I'm going to allow them to continue on to fight for the future of Genosha. Now, I want to jump back over to the X-Men because you do have the X-Men arrive at a center where you did have a bunch of humans hiding out at. Now, the reason why I say you did, because once you have the X-Men being able to fight their way through a few more mutants that are working for Fabian Cortez, they kind of find out that every single human inside that center is dead. They were killed off by the mutants that work for Fabian Cortez. Now, with all that being said, you have Cyclops get very upset about the fact that you have two different sides fighting against each other for no actual good reason. Like, all this fighting is all because how somebody was actually born. Now, for Iceman, he hates the idea of mutants killing off humans, but at the same time understands that why they're doing this for, because for many years, most of the mutants on Genosha, they were slaves. Now, we are able to get back to the battle between Exodus and also Cersei, but when it comes to their battle, it does reach a point where you do have Exodus being able to actually defeat Cersei. Now, with her being defeated, he kind of looks at the rest of the Avengers as nothing to him. Like, they can't do anything to him at all. He's not impressed at all. And so he flies away. But then you have Cersei wanting to get back into the battle. But they tell her, like, look at what you did to this one area of the island thanks to your battle against him. Like, stop fighting against him, because if you continue, then most likely this entire island will be destroyed at the moment. Now, I want to jump over to Quicksilver and Jean Grey. And the reason why, because you have these two characters trying their best to figure out where is Fabian Cortez. If they are able to find Fabian Cortez, then most likely they can find Luna as well. But while you have our two heroes on the search, they run into the Scarlet Witch and Crystal. Now, for Quicksilver, he believes that his wife has no idea that their daughter has been kidnapped until you have his sister, the Scarlet Witch, tell him all like, dude, the reason why the Avengers are here on Genosha is to find Luna. And now we know you guys are here for the same exact thing. We can work together to hopefully find Fabian Cortez and bring him down. Now, the ending of the third chapter kind of gives us the reason why Fabian Cortez did all of this for. Now, for Fabian, he does blame Magneto for a lot of this mess because if Magneto had stayed dead, then Fabian Cortez would still be in charge of the Acolytes, still be number one with the Upstart organization. But with Magneto no longer being dead, he lost both of those roles. But the reason why he kidnapped Luna is because of Exodus. Exodus is chasing him down. And so you have Fabian say, listen, if you want your daughter back, Quicksilver and Crystal, you need to help me out by getting rid of that man right there. Once you're able to get rid of him, then I should be able to hand back your daughter to you. And so now we're able to dive into the final chapter. Now, when we do, we pick up with S.H.I.E.L.D. and also some of the other members of the Avengers who were not on Genosha. But apparently they have some crazy readings now when it comes to Genosha. But the whole idea, the possibility that Genosha might not be there much longer thanks to the powers of Exodus. Now, getting back over to Quicksilver, the Scarlet Witch, Jean Grey, and Crystal, they're kind of confused on what in the world is going on here. And we do learn that for Exodus, this whole entire storyline is actually about him. And let me explain. You see, for Exodus, we do learn that apparently Magneto had woke him up. Now, we don't get the chance to learn everything about Exodus when it comes to the early parts of our coverage over the X-Men. It will be later books down the road that kind of give us the full origin of this character. But with that being said, when it comes to Exodus, what he is trying to do is become the new Magneto. Let me explain. You see, with Charles Xavier taking the mind away of Magneto, it's now Exodus saying somebody has to step up where Magneto left off at. And because I was his right-hand man, that means I'm the best person for the job. Now, for Exodus, he also believes that for Magneto, he would wanted this. He would want the idea of wiping out every single human on Genosha for what they have done to mutants over the years. His small island has been a nation. But on top of that, when it comes to Exodus, he believes that he should go ahead and get rid of Fabian Cortez. Because remember, it was Fabian Cortez who tried to kill off Magneto when he first appeared in X-Men comics. And so is Exodus saying Magneto is no longer around, but I am his voice. And you know what? I'm going to go ahead and get rid of you for trying to kill off our Lord a while back. Now, you also have him being able to grab Luna as well. And the reason why? To celebrate. Because for Exodus, he now believes that he is also a child of Magneto, along with Quicksilver and the Scarlet Witch. Not Polaris, because she has not figured out yet that she is the daughter of Magneto. Either way, he's saying now he is the child of Magneto. But not like how Quicksilver and the Scarlet Witch is. It's really more of like he was adopted by Magneto. He looks at Magneto as his father, his king, his god. Now, with that being said, he's taking Luna to celebrate the fact that at least he was able to get one person, one child or grandchild of Magneto on his side. But getting back over to the rest of the X-Men who are also on Genosha, they're now going out of their way to help protect all the humans, the innocent humans, who are being attacked by the different mutants of Genosha. Now, for our heroes, they are then confronted by, well, the Avengers. And so now you have both parties being able to work together to protect all the humans from all the different attackers who are mutants. Now, while you have our heroes trying to work together, you then have the X-Men get called by Charles Xavier. Because right now him, Henry, and also Beast, they're still in danger. And they need the help of the rest of the X-Men. Now, luckily for the rest of the X-Men, you do have the Avengers also going in to help out as well. And so with both sides now working together, they both arrive to where Charles Xavier and his group is at as they're fighting against the Magistrate Elite, but also trying to protect the mutants who were in that room earlier. Now, by the time we do get to the end of this section, we do see our heroes being able to take down the Magistrate. But then Charles heroes realize that when it comes to Exodus, even though he now has the Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver and also Luna, there's one other person that Magneto was very close to, and that would be Rogue. Because remember, when it came to Rogue, she was technically falling in love with Magneto, and he was falling in love with her. But you have Exodus take out Rogue for the time being because to his mind, she had portrayed Magneto. And really, for Exodus, he wants to take out Quicksilver and also the Scarlet Witch. But other people out there who had caused pain to Magneto over the years, Magneto was trying to help out the mutant race. Now, on the outside of Genosha, outside that force field that's around Genosha, you have Vision realize that it's not a force field to keep people out of Genosha. It's a force field that's getting smaller and smaller. And sooner or later, is going to crush the entire island completely, killing everybody on this island. It's showing us how powerful truly Exodus is when it comes to the rest of the mutants on Genosha. Now we get into the ending of this storyline where we basically see Exodus take both groups, the Avengers and the X-Men, over to the surface of Genosha, where he does tell all the mutants of Genosha that he will begin the progress of killing off every single human on this island, but also the mutants that had portrayed Magneto. But on top of that, you did have all the mutants begin to attack the X-Men and also the Avengers as well. But he wants to go ahead and do a human sacrifice. And the first one would have to be Luna. Because when it came to Luna, they found out that she was not a mutant at all, nor an inhuman. She was just a regular human child. And so with that being said, for Exodus here, he's kind of like, listen, I feel like she is the perfect candidate to be the first sacrifice for my new goal for Genosha. Now, you do have Charles Xavier and Black Knight being able to work together to actually bring down Exodus. While you have Charles in the mind of Exodus, keeping him distracted, it allowed Black Knight to take his sword and cut Exodus right in the back. And that took him down instantly. And you did have our heroes being able to save Luna. Now, you do have Exodus being able to recover, but right after he does recover, he goes to attack Quicksilver. Now, Exodus leaves, but we're kind of left to believe in the possibility that Quicksilver is actually down. But in reality, he's not down. Well, he is down, but once you do have our heroes give him CPR, he's back on his feet again and now being able to hold his daughter once again. Now, the ending of the story is really more of our heroes kind of realizing that, or really Charles Xavier realizing that maybe he should tell the world the actual truth. The idea that he's not a human, that he is, well, a mutant. And this is where we're going to end today's comic book video. So please leave me a like down below and subscribe. But guys, see y'all next time. Later.